Hey guys, my name is Juliana. I am a teacher in Green Forest, and today I've got a super important task. My task is to calm you down and let you know that making mistakes is totally alright, because even native speakers make them. And today I've got Ben with me today. Hi Ben. And together with Ben, we will discuss some common mistakes that he and I have noticed that native speakers make. So Ben, can you just briefly introduce yourself so that our viewers believe that you are a native speaker?
Of course. My name is Benjamin Stewart. A lot of people also call me Benya here in Ukraine. And I'm a teacher in Kyiv. I teach English. I'm also a volunteer and a musician in Ukraine.
So you, as being a teacher and being a native speaker, you notice clearly grammar, right? So when people make these mistakes, what is the most common one that first popped into your mind when I asked you to think of it?
One thing in English that all native speakers do, I think, is say gonna, wanna, coulda.
The contractions from I'm going to.
Yeah, except it's not even a contraction in this case because we actually write it like G-O-N-N-A, right? It's like it has birthed a new word, but it means I'm going to. And this is something you'd hear even like a newscaster say, probably.
Just is going to continue to weaken. It's going to continue to crumble that model.
I notice my students, they write that and they think it's a word. You know, they have no way of knowing that this is not actually a word. And so, you know, native English usage, incorrect usage, filters down through media. Then I see my like non-native speakers learning English and having to parse this like, this is a legitimate thing to say and yet it's not correct. We shouldn't learn it this way.
Such shortening exists, right? So we have to be going to, and the shortening, it has to be gonna, right? So you have to say, I am gonna do.
Well, we already have a short form, which is I will, right?
Well, my students will disagree with you because there is like a difference between it. I will, like a vague future, but I'm going to, like, it's your plan, like you're about to do
something. I think sometimes people who are learning a language fixate on something like this and try to find a difference. To me, like as an English teacher, they're both future. Just like this is the simple like future idea.
Now you've ruined half of my lessons about the future forms.
Well, like you might be right. Like, so this is another topic, is that native speakers of language don't understand their own language as well as someone who has studied it to teach it.
Maybe the correct way to say it is that native speakers don't use like the whole variety of forms that exist. So they stick to the simplest, the most common ones, like I will do it. It's not like I'm about to, I'm on the verge of doing, I'm going to, so it's just I will do it.
Yeah, I mean, in this example, if I said, I will get a haircut today, or I am going to get a haircut today, like to me it sounds completely identical, so I don't know. But
guys, don't listen to him, come on. We need to learn all of these feature forms.
Yeah,
all right, that's interesting because when you mentioned gonna, the first thing that I thought of is that my students tend to make the following mistake. They say I gonna instead of with the auxiliary verb. I am gonna do this. I am gonna repeat this rule. So they omit to be, but this is incorrect because gonna, this is the shortening from going to, but you still have auxiliary to be going to.
Right, and this already pulls us into a big topic that is very important to this conversation, which is we're going to go to the store later is pretty positive, a perfect example of African-American vernacular, which also called Ebonics. It's like the way that a lot of African-Americans speak colloquially, like through America.
For example, Nadine is going shopping, but in AAVE, you would drop the is and just say, Nadine going shopping. Parts of the verb, like is and are often dropped in AAVE because the meaning is already implied.
This is rooted in history. This is rooted in like slavery and Africans were brought forcibly to America and then were living in somewhat sequestered communities, formed a different form of the English language.
They kind of created their own space in language, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's
the way of communication.
The thing is, you know, even in 1950s, 60s, 70s, this would have been viewed as this is wrong, right? But like we have now realized, like, well, it's not exactly correct to say this is wrong. Like millions of people, this is how they speak. This is how their entire community speaks, and they all get along fine and create a ton of. But the most important thing is they create enormous amount of media that gets exported. So like people have heard a lot of African American vernacular through rap music, through movies, through all of this different stuff, because there's so many incredibly talented and phenomenal like black musicians, movie stars, and whatever. This stuff goes out and people hear it, and so it's actually, when someone says I gonna do this, it's somewhere in the world that's not wrong, right? Somewhere in America that's not wrong, right? And it's confusing in this situation to teach English grammar.
It's confusing for those who learn English. My students text me with a question, Juliana, you teach us like this, but here I hear in the song, but here I see in the movie the other version. And I guess we need to mention that, guys, you can learn English by movies, by series, or by music, but you have to remember that very often artists, they change the words. So they have this right, especially in the songs. For instance, you know Lady Gaga's Paparazzi song, and even she can allow herself to use a mistake. But this photo of us, it don't have a price. I mean, even our elementary students, they know that after 8, the third person we use doesn't, right?
Well, it's actually an example of African American vernacular. I mean, of course, it makes sense to choose the standard rules, because if you go to a job interview and you speak African American vernacular at this person interviewing you, you're less likely to get a job, and that's true in America. That's true everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's the same with like Appalachian English. So I'm from Appalachian. It's this bigger cultural region around the mountains in the eastern US. And this is a place where it would be normal to say like, well, that don't make no sense, you know, like classic double negative, like you were talking about. And it's like, that is how you say that, right? Like, that don't make no sense. And it's like, that is not by any standard rule.
Talking about double negative. So yeah, I've shared with you the screens from the boys series. Some of my students sent them to me with the caption, Juliana, it is a mistake. We can't use double negation, right? It is a mistake. But the truth is that this character from the boys, he's from the East London, and he's like, he uses not only British, but a London accent, and all his language, it's not only it sounds like according to this accent, but he also uses some structures that you're kind of supposed to use if you want to sound like this, if you want to use this accent. That is why he says, you don't got to see me no more. So the correct way would be, you don't got to see me anymore. Or the second example, I didn't want to say nothing, right? I didn't want to say anything. So yeah, but people use it, so it is a mistake according to the books, to the rules.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's...
But it would be a mistake to not use it in that context.
In that context, in that particular accent.
Maybe mistake's not the right word, but it would identify that you are not from there, right? And so...
Yeah, true. Yeah, nowadays it is so easy to keep track of what native speakers use on the internet. Because in social medias, you see comment sections and a lot of people text there. And I guess we as non-native speakers, we spot these mistakes. I've got some screenshots. I didn't have to search much. I just opened a couple random videos. It was on YouTube about Billie Eilish documentary. What was that? Yeah, like this, about, spelled with A-B-A-U-T. You shouldn't learn English only from the comment section, because they are also real people. They can make mistakes. Or I like this example. The girl describes how Billie Eilish has changed her life, and she says, I used to bottle up my negative feelings. So I suppose she talks about past. She was closed, but now she can be open with the world. So the correct phrase would be I used to, because we have the structure. Used to. With D and in. But here we don't have it.
Well, it's so easy to not hear it either way, like used to, because the D gets mashed with the T, so it's kind of awkward to say I used to. I mean, no one says that, so.
Also talking about social media, I've noticed that people don't tend to use capital letters there. I remember from school that we were learning days of the week should be written with capital letters. But here in Kim Kardashian's post, there is Friday with a small letter, and you're like, all right, I have been learning it all my life, and now the famous celebrity, she writes in a different way. So guys, you have to balance, to keep in mind the rules that you have been learning, but it's also crucial to know the difference, to know all these slight details that, there can be some break in the rules.
Every rule is subject to manipulation for a purpose. It's kind of an aesthetic sometimes to write in all lowercase letters, and it gives something.
It's like a vibe of being relaxed, chilling. Like she said it nonchalantly, like, by the way.
Or it's a little bit artistic, or so, like if you're familiar with the concept of zines, right? Like homemade magazines. It has a meaning, it has a political context. It's saying, we don't care about your rules. We can use the language the way we want to use it.
Zine, is this the shortening for magazine? Oh wow, that's interesting.
The difficulty with English is like, it's such an insanely huge community, right? We have one of the most spoken languages, obviously, and a lot of those people are also not natives. You know, I've got a short list of things, like mistakes that I think are really common for native English speakers to make, that every grammar teacher is like, you know, and it's like, okay, yeah, let's try and be better with them. Also, I don't think any of them impact whether someone understands you. So like, to me, these are less important overall. For example, like this one was always hammered at me, lie versus lay. To lie down means to, like, you know, put yourself into a bed or on a couch. To lay something means to put it down, right? And you can lay yourself down or you can lie down.
You know, it can be not so confusing for learners of English. I teach my students that lay is a transitive verb,
right.
So it requires an object.
Right.
So
you're doing
you lay something. So I lay my phone on the table, but the phone is lying. So there is no object after that. So to lie on the table, it's just
right. It's lying there.
Yeah.
Right. It's a good example of like, okay, this is a mistake. Also, native English speakers make this mistake constantly, and they're going to continue to. We use it intuitively. I mean, we learn it at such a young age, basing your usage of it on all the things you have heard other people say. And, you know, we all make mistakes, so it's normal that we don't speak a perfect form of whatever language we speak.
By the way, talking about hearing something and repeating it.
Yeah.
Let me guys share with you my favorite mistake that I keep hearing from the native speakers. And it has happened so many times that I decided to mention it also in the video. Who would have thought?
Who would have?
Yeah, so here
have.
is the mistake. Instead of the contracted have, the apostrophe VE.
Yeah.
So would have thought. It is who would have. And I will also share with you another screen, this one from the online game that I'm playing. We should have won.
Should have. We should have won.
Yeah, so the correct form of so this is the rule, past modals of deduction. Modal plus have plus past participle. So we should have won. Yeah, but we didn't win. It's like a regret about past. But it sounds pretty similar. We should have.
Well, it sounds identical. I mean, yeah, most English speakers would never say, oh, we should have won. Like, it's like,
Yeah, it's very
too
long.
hard. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's like not that hard, but we just say we should have won, you know, because it just, all you need is that little v to hear the have, and anything more than that sounds like painfully formal. So it's actually more correct to like say this, I would say, in spoken English, but then you don't hear that it's a have. So I think a lot of people, especially if they're not paying attention in grammar class or they're not native speakers or whatever, they're saying, I should have won.
My happiness about this mistake, it stems from the realization that I know this rule, and I love it so much because it's very complicated, this past modals of deduction. But I know that native speakers, they use this structure. Oh, we could have done it, or we should have gone there, and so on and so forth. But simultaneously, they use it, but they make mistake because they don't know the exact formula of it.
Yeah, and like you saying this formula, even as an English teacher, I'm like, oh God, that sounds horrible. I don't know. But I'm thinking like, yeah, how would I break the grammar down? I don't know. That's a different topic.
I suggest learning this rule. It's magnificent. You can use it for thinking, like you're making deduction about past. Like you forgot your keys, you don't know where they are, and you're thinking like, okay, I was at work, so I could have left them at work. You're making deduction, so it's so fun, but you have to know the formula. I could have.
Yeah, the next one I was going to talk about is who versus whom, which I think most Ukrainians understand pretty easily, right? Because you have so much use of відмінки. English speakers really don't understand what a case is because
the difference with this pronoun.
We have cases in English only to the point of the pronouns, really. Like that's the only time you can see the different nominative, accusative, dative kind of sense. I studied ancient Greek in college, so I actually have somewhat of a working understanding of like how cases can work in a language. And Ukrainian obviously has cases, but most English speakers don't. And we've lost this over the years. Like English used to have all of these cases, right?
Like, who is there? Yeah, so this will be who.
Who, right, in the nominative, like who is the subject, what is the person who is standing there? But if you said, who did you pay for the repair work? The person I'm talking to is the subject.
So we're addressing this person.
We're addressing the subject and we're talking about the recipient of the action, right? And that's whom. Whom is this dative and accusative case. I don't think any native English speakers at this point get this really, other than like teachers of English.
It was even in The Office, the American version, Michael has been teaching who and whom,
It's whoever, not whomever.
No, it's whomever.
No, whomever is never actually right.
Well, sometimes it's right.
Michael is right. It's a made-up word used to trick students.
No, actually, whomever is the formal version of the word. Obviously, it's a real word, but I don't know when to use it correctly.
Not a native speaker.
You know, grammar teachers can't make anyone speak correctly. It's like, the more I do this, the more my students are kind of like, I don't know, like I can communicate with the Americans on my video game, so like, what does it matter? And it's true, it's like, you can do it, so I can't make you. And when you don't say whom, no one dies, right?
You know, we are making some YouTube shorts, and sometimes we teach advanced synonyms for interesting words. And we've got a lot of comments like, oh, native speakers don't say like this, I don't hear it, why are you teaching this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait guys, as being a teacher, I see these words often in literature, in movies, like circumspect or preposterous, prosperous. I like these words and that is why I teach them. But it's true that not all people use it in common everyday life, and that is why learners think that you don't have to learn them. So it's a mistake to learn such complicated words.
We're never going to speak the way that literature is written and vice versa, right? When you go to the cafe and order a coffee, you're not going to be like, wow, your cafe is looking prosperous today. It's like,
So mesmerizing being here. Yeah.
it's absurd. And everyone would be like, who are you?
Are you all right?
But they all know what the word prosperous means. These types of words are so important in English because it's more than just a meaning, it's more than a definition. It's like a feeling and like a vibe, right? And it's, when you say prosperous, it almost gives like a color to the language rather than like abundance or rather than like wealthy, right? Like all of these words are really similar.
Yeah, so guys, you can learn complicated adjectives and nouns, not maybe to use them. You won't say, I wish your year to be prosperous. But if you read it somewhere or you notice it in the film, you will understand it. So that is why we have to enlarge our vocabulary.
That's abundantly clear to me.
More free, more prosperous.
The next big topic of debate is passive voice.
What can be wrong with it?
This is maybe one of the top 5 things that a grammar teacher in America would be trying to get their students to learn in general. Passive voice is bad.
Oh, really?
Yes. Even though we use it all the time, there's this, especially written.
So we're not talking about this complicated causative passive, but just a simple passive, like the book is written or the water is poured.
Yeah, you shouldn't say the book was written by. You should say this person wrote the book, right?
Huh.
This is better English. It's stronger. It's more confident.
Like it's crucial to name the person who did it.
When you say the book was written by, it's like, well, who is actually the subject? It is confusing. Who's the subject of the sentence in this? Like the book, but the book just became because this person did a thing.
We are learning it
Yeah.
as this is that passive voice exists for the cases when it's not obligatory to specify the doer,
Yeah.
somebody who performed the action. So here we're talking about the book. The book is important, so we're discussing the book. Maybe it's not important who the author is. Like, I don't know the name, or maybe I hear it for the first time, but we're discussing the book and the plot. So,
Yeah. Well, and also sometimes you don't know, right? Like I'm a folk musician, and often the song, we have no idea who wrote it. So it doesn't make sense to say someone wrote the song. It's like you just don't know, right? If we're using language to say like, this person did this and this is the result, then like it would be a better sentence. You could say, I won the Oscar for Best Actor. Or you could say, I was awarded the Oscar for Best Actor. Which is more correct?
the second sounds more humble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is a time to use passive voice, and there's a time when passive voice is actually better. If we are only willing to tolerate active voice, then we are encouraging this kind of aggressive sort of language in these
Being
cases of like,
self-centered,
yeah, like, oh,
egoistic.
I did it, like I won this.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it has nothing to do with anyone else. It's like that's insane, right?
So can we sum up that passive voice isn't actually bad?
The passive voice has a lot of power to show when the agent of the action is not the only person who is responsible for it, right? So I know it's a little bit complex, but it's interesting, and so don't let anyone tell you that the passive voice is bad all the time.
Okay,
So,
cool. What else?
To me, a really interesting topic, though, is how English uses politeness, and it's something that I think is less understood and less common here. Have you ever noticed in English movies, American movies, how many qualifiers we use to like ask someone to do something? Like, would you mind passing?
Like these long sentences.
Where we're essentially like
Would it be possible?
sliding around this direct.
As in Ukrainian, the most important word, like a marker of politeness, is please. Дай води, будь ласка.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you
that
can
is why we translate.
Give it to me,
Give
please.
it to me, please. So I guess if we say please, it means that we are being polite, but it's not enough.
Right, which
Instead
would be
of,
super rude in
let's give this super polite way how to ask for water.
The quickest way would be saying, would you go grab the water? Would you, right? Giving the person the option. We try to use our language to make it feel to the other person that we are equals, whether or not that's true. That's why we try to give this person the option. We don't want to be seen that we are giving an order. If you go to America and you just say like, give me the butter to someone, to us, to an English mind, that sounds like
Встав і пішов, і сходив, приніс мені води. Та?
it's like, who are you? You're not the boss of me, like, and no one's gonna tell you that it like they don't like it. Like it's this thing that like sticks in people's brains. It's this strange thing, but it's not a mistake. It is how English functions for sure.
Let's sum up, guys. It's all right to make mistakes because language changes. And so many men, so many minds, the same so many men, so many nations, so many alterations we have in the language, particularly in English. Just be attentive, and if you know that this is the rule, keep this, stay grammatically correct. But if you notice that people tend to use some different words, so take it for yourself, use it as well. Some shortenings that become mostly common and you understand that people actually use it.
I wouldn't say it's just okay to make mistakes. I think what you really want to keep doing is paying attention to when native speakers make mistakes and file it away. It's okay for them to do this here, and that has a meaning.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for staying with us. Check out our other videos with Ben.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll have more awesome videos coming your way. Thank you.
Bye.
Boom.